Hey, it's Jonathan here from Mindful Communication, and in this video, I'm going to be doing a book summary of this wonderful, wonderful book called Say What You Mean, A Mindful Approach to Nonviolent Communication by Oren Jay Sofer. This book was quite a read, an amazing communication book, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you the 5 major takeaways that I got from this book so that you can apply the learnings from this book into your own life. The first major point I want to talk about is presence. Oren talks a lot about presence and bringing presence into a conversation as one of the key ingredients. It's actually one of the major parts of the book. Now, a great quote from the book Oren mentions is that the pace of our speaking is often a direct reflection of our internal state. This is so incredible. When you take a look at the way that you're communicating, you can actually see what's going on inside of you. And that's a lot of what communication is about. We're just communicating what's really going on inside of us. And so when you think about the pace someone is speaking, right now I'm speaking a little bit more quickly. It's probably because I'm really excited though. So the internal state of my body is that I'm feeling excited. What a powerful, powerful lesson to remember in our conversations, whether they're heated moments, whether they're loving moments, or anything in between. Another great quote from the book is Oren mentions that we often barrel into conversations and then we wonder why we crash. I'm sure that you can relate to this as well. There's so many conversations that people don't really take the time to get present, to think through what it is that they're going to say. They just kind of get right in there and say whatever it is that's on their mind, and then they wonder why they have so many tough conversations in their lives. And so the solution to this, that what Oren is proposing, is that we become way more present. Get into our bodies before we tackle these conversations. Or if you don't remember to do it before, even during the conversation, take a moment to do that and you're going to crash way less in your conversations. And another point that Oren brings up is that you can practice presence without words. This is so powerful because communication we often see as the words that we speak, but often when it comes to being with someone, being present with somebody, we don't necessarily need to give words. And I see this all the time when couples are trying to console each other, they're trying to fix or advise each other. Maybe one partner comes with a complaint to another, and our instinctive reaction, I know I do this, is that I want to fix the situation, I want to advise. And sometimes what we really want in that moment is someone to be present with us, someone to witness us. And so you don't really even need to speak to be present. You can just be there in silence with them. The second major point I want to talk about is that intention matters. This is such a great point. Intention matters so much. We think about communication as the words that we say using I statements, using active listening. If I memorize this script and say it, all of a sudden, this other person is going to change their mind or change their behavior. But it's not about that. It's not about the words that we're saying. It's about the intention behind the words. Oren has this great quote from his book that perhaps you've had the experience of talking to someone who's taken a communication workshop and now has fancier words to run the same old trips. We can make I statements and active listen all we want. If we're not genuine in our intention to connect, it's unlikely to bring us closer. I think this hits on such a key point about the idea of communication, and really the reason we communicate is to be in relation with others. And so if we think about our objective is to get closer to someone, to bring us closer to someone, and you're just trying to use these fancy word tricks to get them to do something, they're not going to be getting closer to you. We really want to ask the question of what do we want their motivation to be for doing something? Do we want them to do something purely because we want them to do it and they're going to feel guilty and shameful and fearful of punishment? Or do we want them to do something because they really treasure us, having us in their lives? There's a huge difference in tackling that conversation with the right volition to get that different response. The third major point is to come from curiosity. We forget to do this way too much in our conversations. We go in trying to deliver messages, let others know what's on our mind, instead of just taking a moment and getting curious about what's going on for the other person. Whether you realize it or not, they're thinking just as much as you are, which is all the time. And they've probably got a lot going on for them. So when you take a moment to get curious, it could open up a whole world of conversation that you didn't even know was there. There's this great quote from Oren in the book: just as no one chooses their mother tongue, no one chooses their conditioned worldviews. And what I really got from that quote is to just really get curious about the worldviews, because when we get curious ourselves, we actually give the other person an opportunity to get curious as well. And when we get curious about our own worldviews, we get to start questioning them as to whether they work or not, whether they're right for us or not. And that could lead to a whole paradigm shift in the way that we're operating in the world. Another great quote is, all beings want to be happy. What happiness looks like varies from person to person. What an amazing nugget of information. We so often do this, I know I do, is that I think that I know what's best for everyone because I know what's best for myself. And the fact is, when we look at our fundamental needs, we all want to be happy. We all want happiness, and yet it looks so different for every single person on earth. And when we come from curiosity, we can find out what that happiness looks like to everyone and not make them wrong for pursuing a different life goal or life path than us. Another great point that Oren brings up is that learning requires humility. Learning requires us to not know. And boy, can we use more humility in this world today. What an amazing character value to have. And when we go in getting curious, trying to learn, we're saying that we don't know. And that is a powerful, powerful communication and conversation tool. Another amazing quote that Oren has in the book: we don't pay attention to things we don't care about, and we don't care about things we don't pay attention to. This is amazing. When we get curious, we start paying attention to things. And when we start paying attention to things, we can start caring about them. So there's this element of curiosity that we bring, and there's also an element of care that we get to bring to our conversations. And that could open up, again, a whole new world of connection with the other person that we're talking to. The fourth major point I took away is making requests. So when it comes to making requests, there are some guidelines that Oren outlined in the book that I'm going to take you through that I found really helpful to make effective, powerful requests. The first thing you want to make sure that you're doing with your requests is that they are positive. What you want to do is you want to make sure to ask what it is that you want the other person to do, not what you don't want them to do. So if you're asking somebody to stop doing something, it's not going to be as clear as maybe explaining what you do want them to do. So one way around this would be to tell them what you don't want them to do and what you want them to do instead. This maximizes clarity and will maximize the chance that you're going to get what you want. A second factor that makes a request really powerful is to get specific. The more specific you are about what you want done, the more likely you're going to get exactly what you want. Go figure. Another aspect of making a great request is to be flexible. If you're stern in your request, if you will only have it one way and not another, they're less likely to say yes. The point is to be flexible. It's to be negotiable about what it is. Be open to alternatives to your request. And this way you can find maybe something that you didn't think about that will work actually better for everyone. Another great point is to provide context. Be sure to let them know the reason why you're asking for this specific thing. Give them the bigger picture so they can get a better snapshot of what's going on in your world. You're way more likely to get a positive response, a yes, if you provide that context for them. And one last thing I took away from this is, what do you want their reason to be for doing what you want? This is such a powerful, powerful question. We often make requests because we want something, and rarely do we stop to think about what we want their reason to be for doing something for us. So for example, you may want them to take out the trash for you. Well, if they're taking out the trash out of fear or guilt or shame, that's going to make you feel one way. But if they're taking out the trash because they love you, because they want to feel connected to you, because they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart and they want to make your life more wonderful, you're going to have such different communication with them. You're going to have a completely different relationship with them. So make sure to ask that very important question. The fifth major point is that it's a practice. We so often forget that communication is a skill, just like any other skill that you have to work at, you have to build over time. It's probably got something to do with the fact that we communicate all the time. So there's so many of us that just think that we're great at communicating because we do it all the time. But the fact is that just like any skill, it needs to be deliberate and practiced. If you play football for a long time, you're eventually going to get good at it. That's true. But there's a limitation to how good you can get. What you need to get really, really good is you need a coach. You need to work on specific skills deliberately. You need to experience some discomfort when you're working on those skills, and then you can reach a whole new level that you didn't even think was possible. And that goes for your communication skills as well. In fact, there's this really great quote that Oren says in the book: "Skillful communication doesn't necessarily prevent those situations. Rather, it helps us handle difficult conversations when they arise and try again when we blow it." This is so wonderful because, again, we're going to learn these communication skills and they're not necessarily going to be 100% bulletproof all the time. What we're really training ourselves to do is have the skill to better handle situations, to better manage these curveballs that are coming at us all the time. If you want to hear more about this book or Oren himself, I actually had a chance to interview him on my podcast, the Mindful Communication Podcast. Just click the link in the description where we spend time and talk more about communication and his book, Say What You Mean. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. You can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description. May all of your relationships be full of love, peace, and connection. See ya.